This is genuinely absurd, as the latest report coming out from the Phoenix Suns revolving around Matt Ishbia and Brian Gregory being linked to be the favorites to sign someone makes absolutely no sense for the Phoenix Suns, not for the fact of the player or what role he could bring for the Suns, but for the stipulations that it currently sits in now. So we're going to dive in and explore what this really means for the Phoenix Suns and why this is absolutely ludicrous to be even putting out there, because it doesn't really make sense. We'll be diving into all of that and more on this episode of Suns Digest. I'm your host, Bruce Veliz, and you guys have been absolutely fantastic showing your love and support here on the channel. We had our live stream here this afternoon where we dove in and compared the Phoenix Suns amongst the other teams across the Western Conference. So go and check that one out, as we ultimately figured out where the Suns would be placed and what teams they would be competing against also in that Western Conference to potentially get them into a better spot. Without further ado, let's dive in. Let's get to the video hand today. Let's make sure to grab that snack and let's get into it, as this makes zero sense in my honest opinion for the Phoenix Suns. As we see from the latest update here, the Phoenix Suns are the favorites to be Khris Middleton's next team, according to Bovada Official. And Bovada Official loves to do this thing where they just tweet out random odds and attach teams to them. And the Suns are the culprit of this one today, as why is Khris Middleton even a favorite for a next team? Well, that would make a lot of sense, because Khris Middleton is still under contract. He's still with the Wizards. He's making $33 million, and he's under contract for this entire season. So I don't understand where the favorites to land Khris Middleton kind of come from, unless Bovada just secretly knows that Middleton's going to get bought out, or they imply that because Marcus Smart got bought out, that Khris Middleton's going to get bought out. But Khris Middleton played actually a very good season last year with the Wizards in the second half of the season and looked to be one of their key veterans. And I don't think they're going to want to get rid of him, move off of him, do any of that, because they already are a young roster to begin with. Next, the Suns can't physically add him. You want to look at Suns roster, courtesy of Spot Track, the Suns have 15 guys under contract, and they have 3 guys on a two-way. Now, they can bring him in on a training camp deal or something like that, similar to Jared Butler, but it's Khris Middleton here, folks. Khris Middleton's getting bought out and signing with a new team and reconstructing a new deal to get him into a new situation. He's not doing that for a competition of a training camp spot or, the potential to be on a team. He's doing it to get the guaranteed play on that team, because he feels like the Wizards aren't going to give him that opportunity. So that doesn't make any sense to me. Now, where it does make sense with Khris Middleton would be the actuality and fit of Khris Middleton with this team, as he would be another volume scorer on the wing for the Phoenix Suns that they desperately could use to add for this offensive punch. But I ultimately don't think that it's going to happen for all the cases that I just listed. Not to mention the fact that Middleton was on the Bucks championship team that beat the Suns. Budenholzer was a part of that team, and he just left the Suns. I don't know if the Phoenix Suns want to be bringing back guys that beat them in their championship to this roster to help them go and win another championship. It didn't work with Mike Budenholzer. Doesn't seem like it would work with Khris Middleton, even though I think Middleton is a solid player in his own right. Like, he can be a solid mid-range guy, and I think that he could be effective for the Suns. I just don't see it happening. Not to mention that, once again, we want to look at Middleton's contract. He makes $33 million, with the Suns being out of the first and second apron. If they wanted to trade for Khris Middleton, who would they trade for Khris Middleton? Are they trading Dylan Brooks? That doesn't help, because now we're losing our defensive anchor in that wing department. Are we trading Jalen Green? Doesn't seem like that would be a smart move. Trading Jalen Green, who has the potential to be a nice rising young star, for Khris Middleton for 1 year. And then what? Are we going to trade Royce O'Neal and Grayson Allen for Khris Middleton? Well, we could, because we can take back more money and we can aggregate deals. So taking that $33 million deal would work. But why would the Suns trade a $16 million deal and a $9 million deal to equal around $25 million? Why would the Wizards want to do that? Obviously, they save money getting more veterans, but now the Wizards are screwed, because the Wizards are now stuck with Grayson Allen for 3 years, stuck with Royce O'Neal for 3 years, and they have the flexibility and luxury of Khris Middleton being an expiring contract. That's the whole reason why they went and traded for him last year, was because he had a team option. He was going to accept that team option, and then he would be riding out this expiring contract with the Wizards, playing with them, finishing out the season, and then at the deadline, If the possibility of him looking better or rebuilding his value comes up, he could get traded. If not, they keep him part of this rebuild, or they buy him out at the trade deadline, and he goes and signs with the championship contender to just be an extra additive piece on their bench unit to be an offensive sniper and scorer from the mid-range, from three-point range. Because Middleton, even though he's had some injuries, even though he's gotten a little bit older, still can be that viable offensive piece as, I think a fourth, fifth option on a championship level squad. And if he was playing off the bench in a six-man capacity or role like that, I think he'd be even better in that instance. So ultimately, it does make sense in the long run for the Wizards to make this move. But right now, there has been no indication that the Wizards are even buying out Khris Middleton. So I don't understand why this linkage is even happening. All for the same fact, like I mentioned, that the Suns still don't have an open roster spot to bring Khris Middleton in. Even if you want to say Jared Butler's on the training camp deal, yada, 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 it's still a contract. They're not going to be able to bring Khris Middleton in. Secondly, once again, why would it make sense for the Phoenix Suns to trade for Khris Middleton? Or why would it make for the Phoenix Suns to go out and be the favorites to go and get him? I don't think the Suns take a drastic leap where Middleton's going to completely change them for them to be better. I think teams looking at this list, like the Pistons, would be a better fit for him. They seem to be a better position in a weakened Eastern Conference. The Miami Heat could be a better fit for him. The Nuggets, the Clippers, the Bucks back, the Lakers, all these teams seemingly look as better places than the Phoenix Suns. So why are the Phoenix Suns the favorites? Because Boveda wants you to click and bet on the Phoenix Suns so that you lose money. That's where it is. Ultimately, I don't think Khris Middleton's going to be coming to the Phoenix Suns. It just doesn't make any sense. There's also, like I mentioned, been no indication from the Wizards that they're even intending to buy out Khris Middleton. They could keep him. They could renegotiate a contract with him next year. The Wizards are trying to build this type of youngerish kind of core with veterans, similar to what the Pistons and the Rockets had done the past couple of seasons, with the Rockets adding Dylan Brooks and adding Fred VanVleet, the Pistons adding Tobias Harris. They now have, obviously, Marcus Smart and Khris Middleton last year, but now have Khris Middleton and CJ McCollum this season, and I'm sure that they're going to want to potentially trade those expiring contracts to get other young players or pieces to kind of help out with their core. But if not, if they're not able to, I'm sure they're willing to hold on to those guys and potentially renegotiate with them into the next couple of seasons if they're willing to stay, unless they want to go win a championship, to kind of be these leaders, these kind of voices in this locker room to help the Wizards kind of get out of this mess. So once again, don't see Khris Middleton coming to the Phoenix Suns. Don't even see him getting bought out. So I don't necessarily know where this report is coming from, but that's Boveda as always. Once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in, showing your support here on the channel, looking at the latest news revolving around the Suns. Like we said, it is kind of dry this time of year, so when we do have some concrete information revolving around the Suns here with some potential Jonathan Kuminga stuff that has been talked about in the last couple of days, or any other things revolving around this team, we will get it for you guys here on the channel. So make sure to hit that like, hit the subscribe button, and to stay tuned with everything. But I'll be signing off. Have a great rest of your day, and go Phoenix Suns.